All right. Thank you for your attentiveness. It's hard to sit on a Monday night after work when you're tired, but you have given already an hour and a half of your time, and I so appreciate that and your willingness to learn. We're going to make this one a little bit more fun, but we're also going to teach you some things that I hope will be valuable to you. Numbers chapter 13, and verse 32 says, this is the story of when the spies went out to spy out the land. It's a familiar passage of scripture. It says, "And they brought up an evil report of the land, which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, The land through which we have gone to search, it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof. And all the people that we saw in it are great men, men of stature. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers. And so we were in their sight." I want to talk tonight about communication, and I want to talk about what you see. Back many, many years ago, 1984, 85, somewhere in there, those that are familiar with the history of the Apple Macintosh, they came out with a term called WYSIWYG. Anybody remember what WYSIWYG was? Somebody's got to know. WYSIWYG? Somebody? Nobody. You're all just so young and vibrant. And WYSIWYG was this great new thing that Apple had created, or in reality it came out of Palo Alto Research Center, but Apple had sort of appropriated this technology, the graphical user interface. Everybody remember the graphical user interfaces? Wow, you don't have to type anymore. It's all these pictures. Well, WYSIWYG was what you see is what you get. It's an acronym. What you see is what you get. And while it is a technical term, not super technical, it's very interesting because what WYSIWYG represents is so much of the common human experience. What you see is so often what you get. In the scripture reading that we just did, they saw these people and they were giants, and because they seemed so great in stature, they were so tall, they were so overcoming, they became grasshoppers in their own sight. And then the scripture says, and then what happened? We became grasshoppers in their sight. Because that's what happens when what we see is what we get. We create this self-fulfilling prophecy that because we perceive things as certain way, it sets in course for a cascade of events. So I want to talk to you about communication. And communication for us and has many different components. You've heard lots of lessons on communication, and communication is about listening. It's how well you listen. Are you listening empathically? Are you listening more than to just the words, but you're listening to the body language? And communication is about talking. It's about giving content. It's about being understandable. It's about making sure that your ideas are cogent or coherent, and all of those other things is what we think about in terms of communication. But for most of communication, while speaking is a part of communication and listening is obviously a part of communication, the communication problems that I have in life are not related to the people I'm talking to not being able to hear, or they're not related to me not being able to speak. The communication issues that we typically run into have more to do with intention and expectation. Intention and expectation. It's if you've been married or have a good friend or someone that you've been in relationship with a long time, and in terms of just those friendships, you can get into an argument with anyone over anything if you get those two things wrong. And I do mean anything. I could randomly choose somebody from the audience, and I could say, really, you chose, sis, I'm not sure what color your shirt is. Green? We'll call it green. Sis, you chose green? Guess what? We're probably in an argument. She's going to say, excuse me? What did you mean by that? And then I say, I didn't mean anything. We are into intention and expectation like right now. And all of it is based upon, how we see things and how we perceive things. And so this idea of WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get, I want to talk to us about what we see. Because as leaders, being able to see will keep you out of more challenges and issues and problems. And it will also help you benefit those people that are within your care. When you see beyond the surface level, when you see beyond just another human being, but you have intuition, you have insight, you understand them in a deeper level. On January 12th, 2007, for 45 minutes on the morning of the January 12th rush hour, a man sat in the Washington, D.C. metro station, and he had a violin, and he took the violin out of the case and put the case aside and began to play the violin. He played 6 of Bach's pieces for about 45 minutes, and during that time, since it was rush hour, thousands of people passed by this man. And rarely did anyone stop. For 3 minutes, one middle-aged man stopped, noticed he was a musician playing, and he kind of slowed his pace and stopped and listened for a few minutes. Another person hurrying by did the sort of look back as they were going, trying to enjoy some remnants of the music as they walked. One small child ended up stopping for a few minutes, put a little bit of money in the case, and then went on when the mother gently prodded the child to leave. For 45 minutes. Total count of people that stopped was 6. They stayed for but a few minutes, and total collection for the 45 minutes of playing, $20. He was in Washington, D.C. because he was on the East Coast, because the night before, Joshua Bell, who is a virtuoso violinist, was playing a concert at $150 per ticket the night before with the same $4 million violin he was using in the metro. Same guy, same music, same instrument, but very, very different results. And it came down to nothing more than just perception, expectation. No one expects a multi-million-dollar violin to be brought into a metro station. No one expects a virtuoso violinist to be sitting in a metro station playing incredible music. No one expects that. And yet, while the music was the same and the violin was the same, and for all intents and purposes, the experience would have been the same had people slowed down and taken the time to enjoy what was being presented to them, because of their expectation that they had thrust upon the musician, because of the intention of what they had to do and where they had to go, and all of those pressures of life, they missed an opportunity. They could have saved themselves $150. And it speaks to this idea of how quickly in life, how often in life, we're rushing through to do something that we miss the opportunity that's in front of us. Or worse than missing the opportunity, as leaders, we miss the person. The story Pastor Bradford told about the Bluffs and that couple that invited them, they saw them. I've run a lot of trails. I think I've been to the Bluffs. I think last time I was in Bakersfield, I went and ran up and down the hills there and tried to get some exercise, and ashamedly, I didn't talk to anyone. Because our intention and our expectation frames so much of what happens. You know, it's funny, I had a little bit of a digression, but you see people in life that may not have achieved what they had hoped to, their expectations, their dreams, and they would sometimes chalk it up to, well, the opportunities never presented themselves, or I never got the big break that I was looking for, or if you knew that in my case, single mom, dropped out of high school, lived in these dumpy 3-story apartments, and on and on and on, that there's all these reasons why life didn't unfold the way I had hoped it to unfold. But did I miss the opportunities because of my intention and my expectation? And I think in leadership, it's so important that we grasp the concept of this intention and expectation, because we come in contact with people all the time, and people are our business. That is our intention. That is our raison d'etre. This is why we exist. This is who we are. We are here for the people. And yet, how often do we walk past them? How often do we see through them? Communication is about what you see. It's about when you get up in the morning and you take your first steps outside the door, and you're either on your way to a meeting or on your way to do some task, and you forget that we're surrounded by people. There were some theological students, I can't remember the university, but theological students, and they did this little experiment where they were assigned a Bible class that they had to teach, and the sermon was on the Good Samaritan. And as good university experiments go, they had the setup. And the setup was they've got a student, and that student has to make it across the campus in order to get to the place where he has to present the lesson on the Good Samaritan. And lo and behold, what should they encounter en route but a person with some injury or some need? And it was shocking the number of people who were en route to teach a lesson about the Good Samaritan who bypassed the opportunity. Because their intention was pointed towards this outcome of this class, and they couldn't see what was right in front of them. It's our job as leaders, it's our job as people that have the truth, that have righteousness, that understand these things. It's our job. Isn't it funny that when you buy a truck, car, doesn't matter, you buy a new Honda Accord, and lo and behold, you realize what a leader you are, because so many people start buying Honda Accords. It's called recency bias, if you want to know the official terminology for it. Now that you own a Honda Accord, guess what you see? Honda Accords. And so what you see matters. Leadership, how you see your world, how you see your opportunity. And from a leadership and a communication perspective, how you see that person matters. Every conversation I've had with my wife that wasn't ideal, that is a euphemism for we might have been arguing, was I missed something. There was a missed expectation, hers or mine, and that affected the communication. So what do you see? They did a test where they and you've probably heard these before. They're not news stories per se, but they went into a school and they told the teachers, gave them all the previous report cards of the students that were in their class. Some of them were genius level, some of them weren't doing so well, some of them were below average. And guess what students got the most teacher attention? Which students were the smartest students in the classroom? It was the ones that the teacher was told are the smartest. In fact, they did some interesting surveys around this, and what they found is that when the teacher believes that you are smarter, you get more attention, you get more accolades, you get more time. Here's what the survey or the research says, and you can look this up. Harris did this in 1991. First thing, the teaching climate was drastically different depending on if a smart child asked questions or offered answers versus a dumb child, even though they had the same behaviors. They found out that the amount of input a teacher gave to a smart student was much higher than entailed the material given to the perceived dumb students. The students that were considered smart were given more accolades. Wow, that was a really great answer. You really did good on that. You really look like you prepared well for that. And the purported to be dumb students, when they got the answer right, then that's right. As if there was some element of surprise. See, because what you see makes a difference. How you perceive things. Susan Cain wrote a book called Quiet. It's a great book. If you're an introvert, you might love the book because she talks about this idea of introversion versus extroversion and how those differences manifest themselves. And the story I told was a little bit from her material about that precocious student, that just because a child is extroverted and precocious and always answering the question, I've got the answer, doesn't mean they have the right answer or all the right answers. And at the peril of the student that's the introvert, that doesn't always answer the questions, they sometimes get missed. How often does that manifest itself in our Sunday school classes, in our youth classes, in the lobby, in the cafe after service, where someone's off standing to the side? They're just as smart, they're just as needy, they're humans, they're us. But we feel intimidated because we've assigned some expectation. We've come to some foregone conclusion about their hunger, their need. And I think as leaders, we've got to realize that if we're going to lead, we're going to have to see a little better. If you would go ahead and put up some slides, just the first slide for now. Colgate, if you know Colgate, toothpaste company, they wanted to do some ads to remind people about dental hygiene. And so they created a series of magazine advertisements that they had put in magazines across the country to encourage people, to remind them the way you present yourself, how you show that dental hygiene is part of your presentation, that the way you present yourself, how you show up, is all part of how people actually perceive you. And so they put up some commercials, as I said, in magazines. If you just go ahead and put one of those up. Here's one of them, soon to be. Here's one of the things there. Next one. Next one. Next one. Oh, and you can go back. And back. And back. And back. What did you notice about those pictures? The gentleman had a little thing going on there that might have needed some help. Anybody not see that? Did anybody miss the fact that the dude needs a toothbrush? What else did you notice? What, sorry? Perfect smile, right? Pearly whites all across. Whitening, she's got a regular appointment. Anything else? Yes. The woman has 6 fingers. That's crazy. Okay, does anybody have a more productive, a more reasonable answer to what's going on up here? Okay, let's go back. Why does the woman have 6 fingers? And if you have 6 fingers, it's perfectly okay. I'm not suggesting there's anything the matter with that. What about the next picture? Now that lady has got cool arms. I don't know how she does it, but one of them is very, very long because in the top left right-hand corner, that's her hand. And then what about the next picture? This guy isn't so good at full communication given he's missing one ear, the left. So this is called priming. And this is what happens to us every day, all day. Because we overlay an expectation, and especially in communication, we overlay an expectation, and then we wade into the conversation with our expectation. But as leaders, and I'm not expecting you to have noticed all of these things, but what happens is we become so primed based on the way people are dressed. We get primed by the words they say. They say, so, and they move their head in a certain way, and we take the bait. I think as leaders, we've got to learn how to quiet the voice, lower the expectation, and truly understand what's going on. Because communication is vital to the leader's toolkit. Most of the impact that you're going to have on people in leadership is based upon your communication. Your ability to either communicate an idea and get their buy-in, your ability to delegate an assignment and get their passion and commitment for it, your ability to help them and help them navigate challenges and things that they face in their life. And the only way you can do that is by suspending your expectation, by learning how to listen, to learning how to be present. Because otherwise, we jump in. Oh, I know where this is going. Do you? Maybe it's worth asking another question. And another question. And maybe another question. Maybe it's worth letting them answer a few questions. Maybe showing up more curious. Jim Collins was scolded once by his professors. He said, Mr. Collins, you would do well to show up more interested and less interesting. It's funny, as leaders, we like to have, what's new? Oh, I was just reading the other day. Oh, I just heard about this new research the other day. Did you know? Do you ask more questions or do you do more telling? Think about the conversations of the people in your care. Do you show up with advice or do you show up thoughtful questions? Do you show up listening? What did Covey said? Seek first to understand, then be understood. And I think it's so important. Play. This next one, it's a video. I'm wondering if it will play. You should be able to click on it and watch it, and the instructions will be self-evident. They'll tell you what to do. So let's go ahead and play that video. And we don't need sound. Let's see if the computer will play it. The video appears not to be playing. Skill testing question. The video is not playing. Who should be embarrassed? Why don't we point to the person who should be embarrassed? 1, 2, 3, point. Let's do this. We are going to stay here all night, if you'll allow me, Brother Bradford. We're going to stay here all night until we point to the person who's going to be embarrassed. Who should be embarrassed? 1, 2, 3. Man, you guys don't all participate. We'll try one more time. Who should be embarrassed? Thank you. Me. Yeah. Right, this is interesting, isn't it? Because when we started, and don't be embarrassed, this is life. Whether you did or you attempted to, you might have wanted to point backwards. But whose fault is it? Did I test the equipment? Did I test the equipment more than once? Do I have a failover plan if that video doesn't play? Do I have a space filler in the event that the video doesn't play? Do I have a way to think about how I'm going to manage their feelings in the moment that it doesn't play and they're feeling like, and if you've ever been a sound guy, you're pushing buttons or doing things and you're like sweating bricks and you're kind of like, please work this time. And you're feeling the pressure and the guy's up there standing there giving you the hairy eyeball like, what's the matter back there? Can I get some more volume up here? But the reality is, it's my fault it didn't play. Well, it played on my computer. Your computer's not that computer, apparently. Leadership matters. I almost wish I would have done this just as wish I'd been more thoughtful and make it fail so I'd have a good lesson, but it worked out anyways. A great leadership lesson. Accountability matters. All right, let's go to the next one. In the absence of that, let's put up the next slide. How many squares are there? Go ahead and count them real quickly. Hopefully this won't take you more than a couple minutes. All right, raise your hand if you know. How many squares are there? Yes, sir. Sorry? 70? 17. No, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. No, ma'am. Getting warmer. We'll leave it at that, but there's 30 squares there. And this is a really interesting, and maybe go to the next slide. So we're not, what do you mean there's 30? That's impossible. It would be interesting if you, gentlemen, if you could get this to play, that would be interesting as well, if you can click on it and see if it will play. But there was 30 squares there. And it's kind of like you've heard the thing where a baseball bat and a ball, well, we'll skip it. A baseball bat and a ball cost $1.10 together. The baseball is 10 cents. How much does the ball? And what you realize is that at first blush, we always feel like we have the answer to the question. And we want to answer the first answer we have. You look at that square and you go, it's a 4 by 4, 16. Oh, hang on. I guess there's one big one, so maybe it's 17, which is a valid answer. I think 17 is a great answer. And then you realize, well, there's some 2 by 2 squares in there. And then there's some 3 by 3 squares in there. And then you start putting it all together and you realize there's a lot more squares than we thought. Do you think we'll be able to get the last video to work? Okay. This is a spinning cat. Who would like to suggest to me that the spinning cat is spinning clockwise or counterclockwise? Right to left or left? Right. Clockwise. So now the paws are out front, paws are out back, paws are out front, paws are out back. Everybody see that? Okay, who can make it go the other way? Whoop. Now paws are out back, paws are out front. Paws are out back, paws are out front. Can you make it go the other way? It's an interesting video. You can Google it online and you can find it. What's interesting about this video is that you can actually change the direction of the cat just by changing the way you look at it. 1 minute it's going this way, next minute it's going the other way. And what's curious about that, thank you, gentlemen, what's curious about that is that's the ability of our brain to change the outcome based upon what we see. Why don't we stand this evening? We'll wrap this up. What you see matters. It matters in your leadership. It matters in your relationships. It matters in the kingdom of God. What I want to encourage you to do is I want you to stop looking at the activities and to try to start looking at the people. Next time you have a job to go to, you're about to mow a lawn, you're about to fix the IT, you're about to unload something. I want you to just stop and ask yourself the question, who do I see? What do I see right now? How can I have a meaningful conversation with this person? How can I express the love of God to this person? How can I just let them know that I see them? Communication matters. And if you want to be a great communicator, you've got to change what you see. And you've got to start seeing people, not tasks. God bless you. Thank you for all your attention this evening. It's hard to listen to somebody for an hour and a half. So I appreciate your attentiveness and your commitment to the things of God.
And thank you.